Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me this week we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, nerds? I'm doing great.
What is going on? So today's episode is pretty much going to be probably a pretty like on the shorter side, I imagine, because really the only topic we're talking about is the Mortal Kombat movie, available now on HBO Max or in theaters. Both Cam and I sat down and watched it this week, and so yeah, we're going to talk about that. I guess we'll do the typical standard that we do of kind of starting spoiler-free impressions and thoughts on the movie, and then we'll dive into full-blown spoiler territory to talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, specific moments, cool little Easter eggy things, and, maybe our hopes for the sequel, which I imagine is inevitable, but if not, the hopes for whatever they teased as the sequel. But before we dive into that, a little bit of housekeeping. If you like what you hear, please rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, ring the notification bell on YouTube, all that fun stuff. And if you do feel so inclined, you can always support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite, just like our wonderful Patreon producers do. Diving in, what is your lineage with Mortal Kombat, Cam? I know it is a series rife with lore, so I imagine you are probably far deeper in the weeds into it than I am. But yeah,
Just a skosh.
Yeah, just a skosh.
No, I have a deep love of this series. I will admit, playing Mortal Kombat games, they're not my favorite games. I was a much bigger fan of more combo-based, flashy fighters like Street Fighter, or even later with even more technical fighter games like Tekken or Soul Calibur. So I've definitely moved away from Mortal Kombat as far as games wise.
Plus, there's always that Dreamcast game, Asuka, whatever, that everybody
got. Asuka 120%. It's a Sega Saturn game. Yes.
There you go. Whatever.
The reason about Asuka is 120%, why that's so great, is just because it's just such a technically solid game. The aesthetic around it is absolute, just anime bullshit. But it's just, but the actual for people who appreciate fighting games for the actual technical and mechanical features that a game has, that game is pretty special and is a really solid game in that respect. But in comparison to Mortal Kombat, I've always felt that Mortal Kombat is a very distinct style of fighting game that's really separated itself from others. Not just in its aesthetic of being this brutal, vicious, bloody, gory game, but also in its willingness to play with fantasy and sci-fi in a very cool and fun way. Nothing is ever off the table as far as inspiration goes. It doesn't matter how ridiculous it is, it could make it in the games, especially the early games. Whether it's a cyborg shooting a missile out of its chest, a dude in a mask with these traditional Chinese hook blade weapons, or just a dude who fires a laser beam out of his eye. There's this idea of, and a suspension of disbelief that goes into these games that has translated very well over to film, I feel, in regards to the original Mortal Kombat film. They do a very, very cool, very fun thing with the transitioning of the series. The original film, I think, still holds such a special place in a lot of people's hearts as far as it going as a popcorn-munching action film.
I have my 2-pack of the original Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat Annihilation here.
If only you could chop half of that off.
I mean, I can just. Oh no, it is all on one disc. Well, I can just never look at the Annihilation piece of it, which admittedly I never do. I feel like I've watched Annihilation twice in my life, and it was
that's more than anybody ever needs to.
It was once when the movie came out, and I was like, this is terrible, and then it was probably again when I got this double feature, I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that, and I was like, is it as bad as I remember? And yes, it was definitely as bad as I remember.
It's worse than I remembered, because I was a kid last time I saw it, and the 20 years since that film, not 20, but the 20-ish years that it's been since that game came or that film
Oh,
came out.
it's more than 20.
It's more than 20. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's absolutely aged. It was already bad, and it aged even worse.
You know, say it was like 97, I think.
Yeah, there you go. So, but I have like, of course, when Mortal Kombat got its reboot, I was like, wait, what? For anybody who doesn't know, Mortal Kombat,
Like the series, the miniseries thing. Is that what you're talking about?
no. The when the game series,
Oh, when the
got
games
its reboot.
got it. The
Yeah,
games
Mortal
got rebooted.
Kombat, which was essentially Mortal Kombat 9, basically said, oh, hey, somebody's going to go back in time and like mess with some stuff. And it's now created 2 separate timelines. I think each timeline, respectively, is like has its ups and downs. But overall, at the end of the day, like most people care about, what most people do care about is 2 things. One, the characters. Mortal Kombat has a long list of characters that are like almost every single, like you can, I'd say at least a third of them are extremely iconic that if you looked at them, you'd be like, oh, that's a Mortal Kombat character. And the second being that there is just such a distinct, like games have either, like other fighting games have gone in this method of we're going to go stylish or like realistic, and Mortal Kombat has just eschewed all of that by saying, cool, we're going to go back to our roots. We're going to get even more bloody. We're going to get even more vicious. The X-ray attacks that they put in Mortal Kombat X, the fatalities have gotten more brutal. The variety of like playing styles, weapons, non-weapon styles, and stuff with different characters, all of that has definitely just changed. There's so much depth there with those games that I just think is so just has so much to offer. I wish I was more of a Mortal Kombat fan when actually playing the games, because they are just not my cup of tea when it comes to fighting games. They're solid, but like mechanics and the like traditional mechanics of Mortal Kombat, I don't feel like do not attract me. Like I'm still much more of a flashy combo hitter. Like with, like I'd probably say like my go-to is Guilty Gear, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. You know, a lot of these like much flashier combo heavy based games. So that being said, I like in regards to like that's just my history with it. So I've been in, but going back further is I was around and I was a kid when it came out on Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, and you always wanted to play it on Sega Genesis because you could unlock Blood Mode.
I think it had Blood Mode unlocked on Sega Genesis. You had to, if I remember correctly, you had to unlock it on like Super Nintendo. It was like defaulted.
No, both games were defaulted not to allow Blood Mode. Sega allowed Midway to put in a code that you could put in to get blood.
Okay, well, I remember little enough of that because I remember playing it a lot on Game Gear, and
the Game Gear,
yeah,
AKA the destroyer of batteries.
yeah, absolutely, yes, the
consumer of batteries. I have an image somewhere on like an old laptop dump of an image. I'll send it to you later. It's of like a very cool artistic rendition of what the Game Gear is basically.
It sounds like it's going to be an eater of batteries animation or something like that.
Yeah. It's not an animation. It's just an artistic image. It's very, very cool.
I like that was my introduction to that, and of course like playing it in the arcades and stuff. And I remember I was a Street Fighter kid with like Street Fighter 2, and then Mortal Kombat kind of came on the scene, and it was like, oh, that is cool. That is like the more adult, game to get into. And so I remember playing that with friends, especially like a ton of Mortal Kombat 2, when they kind of added a little bit to the roster. And then over the years, I've just kind of like occasionally checked back in. Like I remember there was one where I don't remember which one it was, but it was like, oh, they introduced like a story mode, and you were basically like Bo Raicho training, and like it would like the tutorials would like have you turn into a whole bunch of different other characters and kind of learn through them. And then I played the story mode of Mortal Kombat 11 a couple years ago now. I think for like our Game of the Year conversation in 2019, just because I was like, I'm hearing great things about it. I'm hearing great things about its story mode. Let me check in and check it out like at the end of the. And it was a great story mode, and in particular, what I've loved about Mortal Kombat is especially, I mean, NetherRealm in general has done this, but they've been really great about like tutorializing their games and coming like creating really good tutorials that like will show you here's the frame by frame things that like the diehard fighting game community is going to really latch onto, but also like it makes it accessible enough for a plebeian like myself. And I really enjoyed like that story. It was interesting like hopping into it, having not kept up with like Mortal Kombat stories and stuff over the years, because it was like, oh, half the characters are just zombies now, and there was a whole bunch of like other stuff going on. And I was like, okay, this clearly is stuff that has happened in other games, but there was like a cool time travel like nature to it, and it was like, like your old Sonya Blade and Johnny Cage going back in time to meet like young or Johnny Cage going back in time to meet like young Sonya and young Johnny, and Johnny versus Johnny being like cocky, like young cocky asshole Johnny versus like has seen some shit Johnny, but still is cocky. It was really cool just kind of seeing that, and I really enjoyed it. And so it was fun to kind of get like a refresh on that. As for the movies, like I mean, the '95 movie was certainly a staple of my childhood. In that same vein of like, we all knew it was bad, but it was fun, and for the video game movies we had at the time, it was one of the better ones, if not the best. It largely driven by its epic soundtrack that like would just make any like playing the Mortal Kombat theme, Techno Syndrome or whatever would make like any just day better. Like if you're just like having a bad day and suddenly dun 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 comes on, it's like, oh yeah, let's go. So yeah, it was fun, and then yeah, Annihilation came out and was terrible. There was like a short-lived TV show that I remember watching and being like, this is also really bad. I did enjoy when they came out like 10 years ago now with Legacy, when they kind of like rebooted as like a web series. That was pretty cool. They did that for a couple years, and it was like clearly people that like really liked the series behind it. Certainly helped it out, I think. And then here we are in 2011 or 2021 with the new one that has just come out, and I ultimately had a good time with it. We'll dive into more specifics. It definitely has like a lot of the same kinds of charm of the '95 one, and that like there are definitely a lot of like really just cheesy and bad stuff to it, and I don't know how appealing it is if you aren't a fan of the series or don't know the series. Like there are definitely enough things in there that I picked up on, but then there was like a ton of stuff I'm sure that was even going over my head because there was like allusions to characters that I just don't even know or recognize from their deep roster. But it was so much fun. Kano in particular steals the show, I think. Josh Lawson, I believe, is the actor playing him. He like more than anything, and he makes his appearance, half an hour, 40 minutes into the movie or whatever, and just immediately gets what kind of movie this is, what kind of character Kano is, and is just like every time he's on screen, he's stealing a scene. Has so many great one-liners. He is the one that like. He's not, obviously our point of view character is Cole, the completely new character to this franchise that is basically like, hey, here's the reason we can explain everything to the audience. But Kano more than anybody else like acts like a real person would when like encountering all of this phenomenal like cosmic stuff that's going on, like people being able to shoot fireballs and teleport out of out of hats and stuff. Like he's the only one that's actually like reacting in a somewhat natural way, which makes just all of his lines that much better in comparison to some of the more straight-laced performances, I would say, in the film. But he's a ton of fun. I really enjoyed a lot of the action. I really enjoyed the Sub-Zero Scorpion storyline that kind of is told throughout the film. And yeah, I had a good time with it. It was a dumb, fun way to spend a couple hours on a Friday night or something like that. I think I echo your sentiment a little bit that I saw you tweet out and what I've seen other people say of like the soundtrack is a bit of a letdown. Like they have a callback to kind of that original theme, but nothing really captures the hype that song originally kind of provided. But yeah, like ultimately, I had a fun time, and I look forward to them getting another crack at this, in the future with kind of continuing the story. Like it's a good setup movie for a franchise of Mortal Kombat stuff. So tell me about your kind of spoiler-free thoughts there, Cam.
I share a lot of those thoughts. Kano definitely stole the show. I didn't feel like he hit everything, but he definitely hit everything he needed to make the experience where he's on screen fun. I feel very strongly about. I have a lot of strong feelings in regards to the main character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And my regards into how they approached the Mortal Kombat universe as a method of like how they were going to do it. I will say, spoilers. This being spoiler-free part right now. If you haven't seen this film and you're just like trying to get our spoiler-free impressions, be prepared for a very, very, very weirdly edited movie. Between inconsistencies, between shots, questionable mid-scene transitions during back and forth during certain scenes, to some very weird stuff, like some very weird, like small. I don't want to call them an exposition dump so much as it's like an expositional turd being dropped.
Okay.
Because it's like it's just like there's just scenes where it's like random, like weird explanation of what's going on.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I think Mortal Kombat films have kind of always had to suffer through. It's like the game is basically just a framework of like, hey, here are a whole bunch of people fighting each other, and then this like the movies always put like so much more story into like the tournament and blah blah blah. And yeah, I'm sure like that lore is in the games as well, but it's always like told in the games through like a text splash screen or something like that. Whereas these always have to make a point of like, okay, yep, here's why we're explaining a way that like people get powers, and here's why this like here's the history of this tournament told through like murals and stuff like that. It's like, okay, there's a lot there. And for me, a lot more of it was like fan servicey stuff than anything else. Of like, hey, look at there's Nightwolf. You can see Nightwolf in a shot or something, and so there's an allusion to him. Haha, cool. More so, yes, in terms of like a solid narrative, it was like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of dumb stuff here and a lot of exposition to set up. I mean, it almost copies the plot from the first movie of like. After 10 victories, a realm will, be able to conquer the other realm. And once again, like Outworld has won nine tournaments in a row, and they're going to win their 10th. Just like the first movie, that was basically the premise of that.
Yep.
And how are we going to, upend that, and what's going to, happen instead in this movie?
Yeah, I think that when it comes to how it played out its plot, so of course in this one we are kind of getting a quote unquote pre-tournament film. I think that's safe, spoilers wise. Like this takes place before a Mortal Kombat tournament, so don't think, oh, this is just another film with another tournament in it. Not the case. I will say that in regards to let me think. I'm trying to think of anything I have to say that's not spoiler. Oh yeah, the soundtrack is absolute hot fucking garbage.
Yeah, I remember, I heard the like
God.
2021 version of the Techno Syndrome come out. They released that a couple days ago or whatever, and I listened to that a day or two before watching the thing. I was like, I mean, it has hints of like the original cool like epicness, but like it more than anything else has made me feel that line from Deadpool 2 where they just go all in on like trashing dubstep. Like I was like, oh, this is like I enjoy a Skrillex song here or there or something like that, but this is like how dubstep can absolutely destroy like an otherwise cool song. That was very much how I kind of felt
this
about
needs
this
to
one.
be like this needs to be mentioned. Skrillex has done Mortal Kombat music before. And he specifically for Mortal Kombat, I think it was Mortal Kombat X, he did like a redo of some themes and stuff, and it slapped. Like, it was good stuff. So, like, dubstep doesn't have to ruin it because it's dubstep. This is just bad dubstep. This is like some bad music. Like, it's just such a bad soundtrack. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I blame it all entirely off of the fact that, like, what's crazy, if you wanted to do dubstep, then you should have gotten Skrillex to, like, sign off on, like, letting you use some of his music. Because he loves the series. He loves the franchise.
Yeah, and that's like to clarify, it's not Skrillex. Like Skrillex
not.
is not involved in the soundtrack on this at all. I don't know who was, but yeah, not him. But that was just the vibe I got when I was listening to the Techno Syndrome 2021 version or whatever. I was just like, oh, like this, yeah, this ain't it, Chief. Yeah, it missed the mark on a lot of ways. Like there are like a couple beats where I'm like, okay, that sounded pretty cool. And like I'm typically a fan of like taking a known theme and then like creating this like, big bombastic orchestral version of it or something like that. Like when like one of the trailers came out and we had that kind of like hint of the song playing, I was like, oh, that's really cool. That sounds really, really awesome. And then we just didn't get that. And you're making a crazy face, so you've just looked up something and it has blown your mind. So please do tell.
The composer of the film's music was Benjamin Wallfisch. He's the composer of It Chapter 2, Shazam, and he collabed with Hans Zimmer for Blade Runner 2049.
Mm-hmm.
This guy is good. I am so upset even more now.
I mean, but listen to those films that you just went through. None of those are like super fast-paced, fighty action stuff. Like, the closest would maybe be Shazam, I guess. Like, Blade Runner, I get. There's absolutely a lot of, like, the synth vibes of Blade Runner in this version. But, like, that's not what you're, like, looking for in a Mortal Kombat movie is, like, the, more meditative themes of a Blade Runner film. Let alone, like, the horror stuff of It or It Chapter 2. So, yeah, like... This needed a more frenetic energy to it in its soundtrack, and it missed the mark there.
But Shazam has a good soundtrack.
Yeah, Shazam's fine. Shazam, I don't remember the soundtrack so much as like where they play with like, hey, we're gonna do the theme from Rocky, and he's doing the lightning bolt, like lightning, lightning, or whatever. He's zapping it out there. Like it's
God, this is so disappointing.
So. Yeah.
Apparently, it was also mastered. So it was mixed and I don't blame the mix and mastering. Like, Tom Norris did what he could with it, I'm sure. But, gosh, this was just such a bad... And director Simon McQuoid also worked with him on it.
I mean, McQuoid, like... The director of this, having done really nothing before this, like, it's... I mean, like, the crew behind the film, for their lack of experience, pulled something off, like... pretty kind of impressive. Like he'd never directed anything. One of the writers was like a brand new writer. One of them is working on other things or has worked on other things. But like it's a relatively new team, like behind and in front of the scenes on this.
Simon McQuoid, he is an award-winning like commercial director.
Yeah.
But in filmmaker, but he is just like he has not done feature films before. I think as far as like there are several shots in this film that are really, really cool and really, really good, and I think will be like put in a highlight reel for this guy. But then there's a lot of like just, and the thing is, I don't think that they're poorly shot; they're just poorly edited and put together.
Yeah.
I think a lot of my failings and a lot of my problems with this film really lie at the end of the day at whoever edited this film together made some very strong decisions that I highly disagree with. outside of a lot of like very basic blunders.
Yeah, I guess it's what are you expecting going in? Because I didn't go in expecting a visual tour de force or anything like that. So like hearing you talk about the editing or hearing the kind of funny guys talk about the editing and stuff, I'm just like none of that really registered me. Maybe it's because I wasn't even like fully paying attention to the movie. I was like watching it while I was doing something else or editing a podcast or something like that. So like my attention wasn't fully on the editing of the action or something like that. But it was noticeable enough of like, oh, a lot of these fight scenes in particular feel like they could have been cooler if it hadn't been so chopped up and we'd seen a better flow of the action going on. But that's about the extent of like my comments on the editing of the film. Like apart from, yeah, there's still a whole bunch of stuff in terms of like bouncing between, Outworld and Earthrealm and stuff where it's like, okay, I feel like we didn't even need some of these scenes, but it was just to like kind of throw in another like bit of exposition as you kind of like another exposition dump to give a little bit more backstory about random characters or something like that. But yeah, it's not a great movie by any means, but it was fun enough. I had a good time, and I hope that this like the series, whether it's Simon McCoy continuing with it or not, or whoever else kind of takes over, like I hope they can learn the lessons from this, like we see oftentimes in these kinds of things. Like I like it's a series weirdly enough I would compare to like Fast and Furious, where I'm like I would be fine seeing this series continue on past this first movie because it sets up like an interesting enough set of kind of central characters, let alone like the wider net of characters that we know are out there in the series. That like I'm down to hop in and play, and hopefully it doesn't go the Mortal Kombat Annihilation route, I guess is really at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the thing that gets this movie a pass for me has to be its action. Music aside, like the action itself is extremely well choreographed. It's extremely well executed. I think that it accomplishes so much of what you want it to do.
Mm-hmm.
What you wanted to see out of a Mortal Kombat film.
Yeah.
That alone, like, kept me interested in going. The failings of this film are, like, what they are, but the thing that this film does right, it just does so right. It does so well. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is, like, my feelings, the end of my kind of spoiler-free feelings about it is that this is a film that, if you want to see a Mortal Kombat action film, this has it. It has that. It has a lot of like the fun, quippy things. Kano is hilarious at certain times. I really want to talk about some stuff that happens in regards to Kano as far as like in spoilery territory.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think Kung
Lao.
Kung Lao. Okay, there we go. That's why I'm messing it up. Kung Lao is spectacular. He is the character who says some of like the most classic lines,
mm-hmm.
and it's spectacular in that regard. So when it comes to hitting the notes it needs to hit, when it comes to, hey, we want to give you the Easter eggs, we want to give you like the fun things that connected to the Mortal Kombat universe, it has those in spades, and it does it so well without it interrupting kind of the flow of the film. And just like, I will tell you this, there are fatalities, and they kick ass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I loved it. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of my spoiler thoughts.
Yeah, the last little bit I would say in there is, like, obviously we've touched on a lot of, like, Kano is really great. I would say, like, there, like, maybe with, like, one or two exceptions, I think everybody else in the cast, like, shows up to play and has fun with it. In particular, I think, again, like, Scorpion and Sub-Zero have a great dynamic, and I love like anytime they're on screen.
Sub-Zero is just top
and
class. Like, I love Sub-Zero in this film,
and a lot of that ties into their lineage in action and whatnot. Because the guy playing Sub-Zero in the Raid, which I've never seen. I've like heard endlessly that like the Raid has some of the best fight choreography ever. And then
it does it just action choreography in general, not just fighting, but actual like actual action choreography and like story. Like the Raid is a beat. Like the two Raid films are beasts unto themselves. They are perfect films. They are perfect action films. They are just so awesome, and I love them very much. The guy playing Bihan.
It's Joe Taslim is Bihan, and then Hiroyuki Sanada playing Hanzo Hisashi / Scorpion.
Sanada.
He's great. Like a far cry from his probably the first thing I remember seeing him in being the Wolverine, the X-Men Origins, the Wolverine movie. But he's really great in this. And I'd completely forgotten he was in Avengers Endgame, because I'd completely forgotten about the Hawkeye Ronin subplot of Avengers Endgame, because I just haven't thought about it in a while. But yeah, Liu Kang, Kung Lao, both of them that you're mentioning, Ludi Lin and Max Huang, are great. Chin Han as Shang Tsung doesn't really get a ton to do in this one, but
which is upsetting.
Yeah, seeing him and being like, oh, it's Lao from like Dark Knight and everything else I've seen him do over the years.
He just does not get enough time to flex.
Yeah, he is a setup in this one, much more like he is kind of a puppeteer pulling the strings, and we'll, I'm sure, in a future event see more from him. Like we really only get a couple like decent moments from him in this, but it's interesting to see him kind of pop up in there, and so that's like I just wanted to really touch on that of like the casting largely strong in this, and I didn't apart from like maybe even the main guy playing Cole Young, I didn't have an issue with his performance so much as like
Louis Tan's a great, like Louis Tan's a really like solid actor.
Yeah, it's just I didn't like the character all that much, and
that's the sad thing. It's like if they had done more with that character, I would want to see. Like I'll talk more about like the distinct things about it that I would have wanted to see in like his character, but I will say that Louis Tan is very good in what he does. He's always good in everything that I've ever seen him in. He's only been in a couple of things, but as far as like an action, like he is a solid...
I just realized, I'm just looking at his IMDb, just realizing he was Shatterstar in Deadpool 2.
Yes, he was.
One of those like, blink and you'll miss him kind of cameo characters or whatever.
Yep.
Nice.
He's fantastic. But I think that as far as like being an actor goes, he is a solid, like I'd probably call him a B+ tier actor in regards to action films.
Mm-hmm.
In the action genre, he is a B+ actor, and he is convincing in his portrayals. I just wish like this film had given him more.
Yeah.
To work with. That is definitely like where I come away from it more. I think that this film, and actually let me end my, like, I think we can kind of summarize the, I can summarize a lot of spoiler-free thoughts, and we can move into spoiler mode. Charles Dance, who played Tywin Lannister on Game of Thrones, he's also a bevy of other productions and films and anything. He's a legendary actor in the British scene. When asked about like why he enjoyed working on Game of Thrones so much, he said, a lot of times as an actor, you have to make a purse out of a pig's ear, which means you have to take like really rough, tough material and turn it into like a silk purse, basically. And so you take like you have to be able, like as an actor, you have to elevate whatever you're working with. It's your job to elevate that. I felt that there were definite times in this film where the actors took Garbo stuff and elevated it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was through their action scenes, whether it was through Josh Lawson as Kano with his like what he does in this film. Just he elevates the scenery and elevates the material that they're working with. And it's fun because you see, especially Louis Tan and Jessica McNamee, both get to play off of that. and because of that, it makes their performances even better.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a film that, like, no matter all the bad things that I've said about it, I really think that when it comes down to the three key things, the acting and the actors, the action, and really how this film sets up what could be a hopefully will be a good franchise. I think that it has what it needs to be a successful film, in regards to like being a successful action film that can hopefully take this forward. So
so with that, I think we can dive into full spoiler territory. I mean, like overall, I think our kind of recommendation here is like, it's a fine movie. Like if you got a couple hours to kill, especially if you like already have HBO Max or something, like check it out. If you're a fan of like, you know, the gore and violence of Mortal Kombat, I don't think you'll be disappointed on that front.
Nope,
as you kind of touched on, like it does have some really fun use of fatalities and some of those ideas. So yeah, check it out. And then let's dive full on into our spoiler thoughts. Cam, I will let you kick things off.
All right, let me go ahead and kick things off here. Did a little kick sorry for audio listeners. I did an actual like physical kick to kick things off. Let's go ahead and start. So I will say, let's just talk about the big elephant in the room. Cole Young, this original character, this my Sonic OC, please do not steal level bullshit character. Like, god damn it, I hate how things ended for him. Gosh. Sorry, so they do this thing in this film. I assume you've watched it by now, audience.
If you're continuing to listen, like we hopefully don't have to explain
it. His armor, fine. The Tonfas pissed me the hell off. Just they are so stupid.
Yeah.
And make like, I don't know. It's like he gets this body armor that like absorbs kinetic energy. I guess it's like Black Panther's. Like Black Panther's style of like armor absorbing kinetic energy.
That was definitely what I thought. That
only happens in one fight. That only happens in a single fight.
Yeah, I definitely thought we were going to see that, where it was like, oh, he's building up energy, and it is like that idea has been introduced to audiences via Black Panther, so they can like have that in there, and like he can like unleash it. And then nope, that's not it. Instead, he just gets these other Tonfa weapons. It
charges up his Tonfa power, which is
it didn't even do that.
So when
it just like his power was still manifesting in that fight basically, and so he got like the second part of his power.
Sorry about that. I had to sneeze. Excuse me. I will say that when his armor was first forming and it starts at the wrist, I was like, here we go. Because now we're in spoiler territory. Let's talk about it. What a weird ass last line of that intro. That they will be gathered and united by the
bloodline of Hanzo Hasashi.
Hanzo Hasashi.
It was interesting because I like. So the movie set or the introduction of the movie obviously is like the like long in the past history of Sub-Zero versus Scorpion basically, and Bihan and Sub-Zero out there to destroy Hanzo and like finish his line off. Kills his wife and mom, or wife and kid,
assumably at the direction of. So like there's
Shang
this
Tsung,
unspoken
maybe
Shang Tsung.
Like I guess
there's this unspoken kind of thing that. So to explain a little bit in the classic and like it's still in the current timeline as well for Mortal Kombat, the Lin Kuei and the I forgot what Scorpion's clan's.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Here we go. Let me look at his information here.
Like historically, they got beef. That's basically all you need to know. I would say, and that's really all the
Shirai. It's a Shirai Ryu Ninja clan. So
that's really all the movie gets into for them is that they have beef. Their clans have beef.
They have beef. their clans have beef. And the thing is that in the traditional story, in the classic story, they specifically Bihan and Hanzo are actually friends. They actually settle the score and the beef between their families, their clans, and create for the first time in as long as the clans have existed. Of course, the Shirai Ryu being Japanese and the Lin Kuei being Chinese assassins, being that's the distinction between the two, and for the two of them to basically just have peace. And what happens is Shang Tsung takes up the appearance of Sub-Zero and massacres the Shirai Ryu ninja clan. Just massacres them all and leaves hints that it's Sub-Zero. So when Scorpion sees this, he comes back and he sees this. He thinks that Bihan has betrayed him and betrayed their friendship, and goes after Bihan, and Bihan is forced into self-defense to kill his best friend and rival. And because of the circumstances, Scorpion's soul goes to the nether realm, goes to hell, and then Shang Tsung is able to bring his soul from hell out and use him as essentially, basically, I'm going to let you go ahead and now get your revenge. And
okay, I'm just going to jump in. None of that is in this movie, so I don't know why we're delving into that.
I'm bringing it up because I like it and I wanted to talk about it. Sorry.
Okay.
And then Scorpion comes back as a zombie Scorpion, basically, and then kills Bihan, and then Bihan is then resurrected by Shang Tsung as well. So the idea was, I'm going to get the best two assassin ninjas Earthrealm has to offer, who would otherwise be champions for Earthrealm, and then use them as champions for Outworld instead. That being said, let's move back into how this takes place in the film. They have beef, clearly, and then, it's like, oh, they have beef, but Hanzo doesn't know who Bihan is, and Bihan speaks
I didn't get
Japanese
that at all.
to...
I think they knew each other. I think they knew, they were at war with each other. We meet Hanzo at a compound where he's guarded by people because they're afraid of this war, this conflict, I guess.
I didn't pick up on that. I picked for me it was this is a ninja village, so of course they have guards. But Bihan shows up, and their introduction after he has killed Hanzo's family, Bihan is speaks to him only in Chinese, and Hanzo says, I don't know what you're saying, but understand, gives him a threat saying, I'm going to kill you for what you've done. That's how I interpret that scene.
I don't remember that I don't know what you're saying exchange at all. I remember him talking Chinese to Hanzo's wife, and then switching it up to Japanese and whatnot, and meeting her where she's at. But I still got the impression that these warriors know that they're the top warriors of each other's clans, and so it's as soon as
I picked up on I picked up that aspect of it. And at the end, after he fights him, and I think it gives motivation to what Sub-Zero's behind, because if Sub-Zero is working for Shang Tsung, he's clearly made a deal similar to the one that Cabal brings up later with Kano. He's clearly made a deal in regards to the fate of the Lin Kuei, and that's why he's working with them, basically. How do they explain how Sub-Zero lived for another 400 plus years? No idea.
Part of his arcana is kind of how I chalked it up. He already has his ice powers here, whereas that was another thing. Hanzo didn't have scorpion powers or whatever, but it was clearly a combatant. As his lineage goes on through the bloodline. I loved it. I loved the introduction of his traditional spear being just a garden trowel, basically, tied to a string kunai.
What's really awesome about that is actually not too far away. So when people think of ninjas, people think of clad in all black, sneaking through the night, like ninja stars, like that sort of thing. But actual ninja, true shinobi of Japan, their weapons were gardening tools, because in order to sneak into a place, the most common way to sneak anywhere in Japan at that time, when they were active, was as farmers. So you would, and what did they do when they weren't on a mission? They farmed. So the famous dagger that is called a kunai that ninjas are known for using, also like had a role as like a gardening hoe, basically, like a gardening tool. Like that totally fits with their whole aesthetic of, hey, I'm a farmer working in the dirt, but at any moment I can turn this thing around and use it as a dagger to kill you.
Yeah.
Totally, and it like also that says like probably some says something about Hanzo's wife, that she was probably a badass in her own way, but that she was protecting her kids when that happened, with what happened in regards to it.
Yeah. The one thing I didn't catch until later in the movie was like because obviously like the fight happens, Scorpion dies, goes basically just burns and goes down to the Nether Realm. And when Raiden shows up to take the like surviving child, I thought there was like, oh, like obviously that's Cole is basically like what my thought was, like, oh, yeah, he's grabbing the kid, like we've already know for the trailers and stuff, and then it immediately like shows like the lineage of Hanzo Hisashi and cuts to Cole, and I'm like, okay, that's so clearly like Cole is the descendant. I thought it was like, oh, Raiden's like hiding this. Raiden is jumping ahead in time or whatever, and like and Cole has been raised. I didn't get until later that it was like, oh no, like Raiden just took that kid and like hid the family for generations, and Cole is just like the modern great descendant of Hanzo.
Yeah,
and they've stayed hidden all this time. Like Earth has been continuing to fight without this line of champions, presumably, or something like that, and whatever.
Yeah. Which means they're always a champion short. And not only that, but I think also Cole mentions he's an orphan. So at some point, something happened to his parents, or he was abandoned as an infant. And grew up in the South Side of Chicago. He's a street urchin kid.
Yeah.
But also, one thing I will say, I love that they did away with any need of any quote-unquote romantic interest. Cole is an established guy.
Mm-hmm.
He is married. He has a like young like preteen daughter. Like this dude is, and I think that fleshed out his character super well and gave him kind of like a feeling of like this is like Cole is in his 30s. He's a washed up fighter, and how they play with that, with his lack of confidence, his also his daughter saying, please, like, don't give up, don't tap. He was screwed in that moment.
Yeah.
Also, he was screwed the moment he went to go to try to force an armbar.
I mean, it was all very tropey in that fight stuff. Yeah.
But if you understand fighting, like people were like, I guess he shouldn't have given up ever. It's like, no, he would have like, the guy was like knocking his screws loose in his head with those punches when he was in a crucifix. Like, it was over for him.
Yeah, I mean,
tapping out was the right move.
That was
in that moment.
That was like, he gets introduced as like the guy who takes a beating and like
for sure
doesn't give up, but like obviously when the fight is over, the fight's over or whatever. So when we come around to his powers later manifesting, I was like, oh, like okay, this is like armor that will allow him to like take a beating and then use that against, and then it just isn't that. And I was like, okay, well that was a weird,
it's so disappointing.
A weird setup that didn't get the payoff or whatever. But
so when his armor shows up, it forms first around the wrist, and I thought it was going to be the get over here.
You thought he was going to manifest the scorpion powers
stuff.
Of his ancestor? Yeah.
Like he's channeling like the spirit of Scorpion from hell. And like he's having these visions of Scorpion in hell. And so like his thing would be to basically be like, since it is all in a lineage, Scorpion is able to like invest in him power from the nether realm of the fires of hell to like do this. I was hoping for something like that, so that we don't get this old Scorpion, we get a new Scorpion, which when he ends up fighting and killing Sub-Zero could set up a really cool thing in the sequel where Bihan's younger brother takes up the mantle of Sub-Zero in defense of Earthrealm. Like, we could do something fun with that. Because there's a lot of really cool stuff that happens with the Lin Kuei.
That was, I remember seeing like rumors and theories prior to when they were like, this character's name is Cole Young. Like, everybody was like, oh, well, like Sub-Zero's younger brother is Kuai Liang, which like an Americanized version of that could be Cole Young. So like there was like this thought that like, oh, maybe that's who this character secretly is or something like that. Obviously not the route they went. So like weird choice.
Unfortunate.
But yeah, we'll see how that all like, because I mean, yeah, like this is we're well in spoiler territory. I appreciate that they seem to be setting up like Sub-Zero dies at the end, but then is going to probably return in Noob Saibot form.
Which is great. I love that.
Like that was a nice little tease. Like that was as somebody who is like very broad strokes knowledge of like the history and a lot of the fighters and stuff like that. I appreciated that. I appreciated like the name drop of Bo Raicho when Liu Kang is kind of telling his story of how he kind of came up and Bo Raicho kind of like, you know, brought him in and was his like teacher. Obviously the Johnny Cage tease at the end is you know, a fun setup, especially because with Kano gone now, like we will absolutely need that snarky asshole kind of energy to kind of like continue capturing what was
and the
so
one
much fun
man
in this one.
who can do it. The
Miz.
one man who can do it, The Miz.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fully on board with that campaign as well.
100%. Like can you imagine? Because his character in wrestling is basically Johnny Cage already.
Yeah. That's like the one thing I would want to need to see him do is like the splits nut punch.
The splits nut punch.
But I'm like,
listen,
I feel
CGI
like I feel like he could do that.
CGI it. He like The Miz is such a good choice for that. Because I could have seen when it panned over. Because I thought I was getting spoiled by Twitter because I was seeing people do the hashtag, like Mrs. Johnny Cage or whatever. So I thought I was being spoiled that they were going to pan up and they were going to show off that it is The Miz, and they don't do it, and I was like, they should have done that. Like, that would have just been the absolute best.
Yeah. I mean,
that would have been the absolute best.
It was, you know, a Deadpool. Like, they didn't have cable casts, so they couldn't show you, you know, who it was going to be, but, like, they announced, you know, his impending appearance and stuff, and I appreciate that. And so, yeah, like, the thing I think that also works well with The Miz is, like, he's a good enough actor, performer when he needs to be, and that's, like, what Johnny Cage is in my book. Like Johnny Cage is a fighter with like CD level like acting skills, and so it's and I think Mike Mizanin, aka The Miz, can be fully in and fully on board with that. And obviously like NetherRealm and WWE have like partnered together and stuff in the past with Ronda Rousey being Sonya Blade and you know all the events and stuff that Up Down Down has done. So yeah, I would love to see that. That would be a ton of fun. And yeah,
I would tell you in a sequel, I would also love somebody who would get a cameo, Sonic Fox.
Yeah, that fair.
Because he's the MK11 like Evo 2019 champion. He's like, and he's a massive advocate for the Mortal Kombat series. I would love to see him get like a cameo somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe is it just going to be him in his Fox suit? Maybe. Why not?
I mean, maybe they meet him at meet Johnny Cage at like a nightclub in LA or something like that, and that's where they find him. And Sonic Fox is there as the DJ or something in his.
That'd be so sick.
Garb.
That'd be so sick.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love that. I would pop the hell off for that.
And they're playing the Mortal Kombat theme.
100%. They have to.
Yeah.
The Immortals theme. Yeah. The classic one, not the trash one from this film.
I mean, I'm trying to think where else we want to dive into. Like, Kano again was just so much fun. I love the introduction. I mean, I know people are split on this, but I really love the Arcana as like the introduction for why fighters have like these magical abilities.
It's never been explained before. They just have them.
Yeah.
If you had to explain them as a, hey, yeah, you awaken your inner ability, cool.
Yep.
Great.
That now I know why you guys have even a shot against, you know, 4-armed monsters or ice magic people or undead fire demons, like, because you guys get magic powers too. Cool, great, like, done. And I loved how they, like, I love that like justification also gave like fun and interesting ways for those powers to manifest, a la Kano, you know, raging out until his like eye beam comes out.
Oh
and
my
just
gosh,
has
it was
a
so
great
good.
like he has a great little moment there. Kung Lao having that like ability, and just like our introduction to Kung Lao being like teleporting out of the hat,
ground,
which was like, I was like, oh, that's
yes,
fucking awesome.
yes,
Like,
yes,
not
yes,
at all
yes, 1,000%,
explained yet
yes.
that like the Arcana is kind of what, like, you know, gives these guys their abilities and stuff. I guess a little bit,
But
because I guess Liu Kang had also kind of introduced like why he gets fireballs. But then again, like Liu Kang coming out and shooting a fireball, and Kano reacting, being like, "Whoa, what the fuck? Like, you're shooting fireballs? Like,
hey, David
are we all gonna
Copperfield.
get superpowers?"
Oh my gosh.
Like that.
Like,
that was cool.
like him making up like magician names for
Yeah.
Liu Kang was awesome.
Yeah, and then him being like, laser beam, haha, suck that fireball, whatever.
Fireball.
The one thing, and I haven't delved into it, but I saw that there was a toasty like scene shot or something like that as like an Easter egg. I would have just loved
Oh, wow.
Kano's like Liu Kang hitting something with a fireball, and Kano just saying toasty in his, like, that would have been enough for me as like just a fun little dumb nod to that. But yeah, like,
Yeah.
all of Kano's little references were fun. Obviously, like he referring to Raiden as Gandalf, and then like
So
Raiden
good.
basically having like the "you shall not pass" moment with his staff. I was like, well, yeah, it was
Yep.
a perfect call out
Yep.
that he was Gandalf.
Yep.
All
All right, we have to talk about. We brought up Raiden. We have to talk about it. Raiden being the only person in the film with a like old school like English accent was like, for me, felt like problematic.
I mean, I didn't perceive it as that so much as I just thought that was the actor, because the actor who's also played Hogan in the Thor movies and stuff. I just took, my takeaway was that was just him. He's a Chinese, I believe, Chinese based actor doing English.
He's Japanese.
Oh, is he Japanese? Okay.
Yeah, he's Japanese.
Thank you for the correction.
Tadanobu Asano is his name.
Yeah, there you go.
He is. So he is Japanese. He's actually like a really great actor. He was in that Martin Scorsese film about Jesuit priests in Japan. He's a really great actor. But in a film where every other Asian person is speaking like straight English, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
It felt really out of place, and it came off to me as being like, I don't want to
go down this route, because I don't think that was a choice so much as like that's just him doing
that's fair
English performance in the same way like Hiroyuki Sanada might have had the same issue, but he had the benefit of getting to say all of his stuff in native Japanese and speak natively Japanese. So yeah, I don't want to like that's like very wary territory for a couple of white guys to go down. So
that's totally fair. That's totally fair.
I appreciate that if it was like an intentional choice. I mean, like, at the same time, it's leaps and bounds above like Christopher Lambert playing Raiden. So,
sure,
like,
don't get me wrong, 100% correct,
100%
correct on that. Yes,
yeah, I would take this iteration above and beyond.
Minus the eyes. Oh gosh, those eyes just were like bad After Effects.
Yeah, it was fine. It didn't bother me. It was like, okay, like
no, I like, you're right. We shouldn't delve too, like, we should. I will kick myself if I don't mention it. That I just felt like that just felt super. I don't know. It just felt kind of weird. But if it's just like that's his English performance, cool, great, no problem. I love the actor. I did not care for Raiden in this film. as far as like in the story goes, because it's kind of just not really well put together.
Yeah, I mean, like he is very much the like, oh, he's there to. I mean, him and Shang Tsung are basically like two sides of the same coin in that regard. Of like they're there to like
Yeah,
establish the rules, kind of, and then also like establish that here's how we're going to break the rules. And neither of them really get like their moment to really have like a
yeah,
great fight scene or anything like that. They're just really there to kind of move the plot along a little bit. And I think we'll get
I
to
agree.
see more of them do some of their cool potential fight stuff that they have in future installments. Like when we
You
get
know,
to see Raiden kind of like take up and actually like participate or something like that, as opposed to the whole like I can't interfere wink kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nope, I
Um,
agree.
and I think also just kind of again going off of like bouncing off of what your kind of concern is there. I think having, I mean, Liu
Yeah,
Kang and Kung Lao being of a younger generation that is more of a like actors that are more duolingual in kind of the acting space, I
yeah,
think
that's fair.
is why their English comes across, that much more natural compared to your older generation of performers. That because again,
That's fair.
we've seen that in many kind of films across the eras, and I don't think it's trying to be the Christmas Eve from Avenue Q kind of like let's just really rail this like stereotype kind of home. I think it was just
And
like that
I
was
didn't feel like they were going that direction with it, but I felt like at times, um, like, and I think what also kind of made this thought kind of permeate in my mind and kind of ferment itself is, my brother-in-law pointed out, well, is it possible just because like he's so much older, and like I'm like, well, then why isn't he speaking like verily and thusly and whatnot? But I don't know, like there's just something about it that just like it struck me after. And here's the thing, I do not want to make a bigger deal out of this than I've already made it a bigger deal than it was before, but it felt off to me, and I don't know if now that I'm thinking about it again and talking to you about it and kind of like unrolling it, I think my greater problem with it is that it kind of just like came like his like when he shows up on screen, it almost feels like he's coming out of nowhere,
hmm
and it's a like his voice is a shock to kind of the cadence of how people have been talking so far. Because I felt like, and that's the thing, if it's just his English performance, cool, that's totally fine. If it's something that they decided to like you said, hammer home, you don't think that they did that, and I don't think they did that either. That's a problem. But I also would feel like I didn't want us to like not talk about it at least a bit. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean honestly, like I'm looking through the cast, so I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. The more jarring voice discrepancy for me was much more Cabal. Like when we hear Cabal talking, and he's got like almost a Brooklyn-esque accent or something like that. I'm like, oh, that is not what at all I expected Cabal to sound like. But
Yeah.
like he is, I mean, he's another one in there, and this might be because he gets to play off Kano a little bit, but like him and Kano, I think, are some of the fun standout performances in
Yes.
just like the cheesy dumbness of the film. I think that they have a ton of fun with it. And it was like, it is somebody who, it was weird seeing it in the credits of like, and as the voice of Cabal, this person,
Yeah.
compared to like the physical performance with somebody else. I was like, that's a weird that like you made the choice to like do that one, switcheroo or whatever. But
Yeah.
at the same time,
I agree.
I did want to shout out. Like we mentioned, kind of the Miz earlier, and the potential for a crossover between WWE and Mortal Kombat. And technically, Raiko here is played by former WWE person Nathan Jones. So like they already even have like
Yep.
an old WWE person in this movie. But yeah, that was that was another thing. I appreciate that like we don't get a bunch of the bad guy heavy hitters in this film, apart from like Melina and obviously like Shang Tsung, but like everybody else is like hey, we know this first movie is going to be about the good guys winning, so let's just like put cannon fodder out there from the bad guys, and like let's pull deep cuts like Raiko and like like Mitara or something like that. Nitara, like it. I guess Cabal and Melina are the two that could have maybe been held off for a future movie to give them a little bit more of their due, from like fan servicey kind of stuff. But I appreciate that, like, Baraka is held off out of this one, as as he's so much more of an iconic kind of figure. Obviously, we don't even get into like Shao Kahn and stuff. Goro, we lose him a little bit, but Goro's always seems like the first first kind of to go, I guess. And so yeah, I like that. There is like such a wide roster of cool characters still to be introduced in the future, and see them, how they come. And now that like this kind of initial cast of characters has been introduced, we will get to spend a little bit more time introducing each of those new, like I'm sure Katana would be, a standard pull for the next one, as we'll see, I'm sure, more of like the Earth Realm champions going to Outworld or whatever and seeing some of that stuff. So yeah, I appreciate that. And again, like the tease there at the end of Noob Saibot is cool. I love that, Scorpion, like let's just give credit to Scorpion having the like one of the best lines of the movie of like, I rose from hell to kill you, or whatever his line is there. Just like a great little moment for that final fight between the two of them. And yeah, like their fight in particular, I thought was probably one of my favorites in the film. And again, because like it wasn't a matter of like these two learning their abilities and fighting at the same time, which we get in a lot of the other fights of Sonya. Well, I guess Sonya kind of like comes in with her fatality amped and ready to go.
Okay, can we just talk about real quick the touch of Kano hawking a loogie into the hand of the garden gnome, and that's the same hand that went through his eye to kill him.
Yeah,
picture perfect.
Yeah,
like that little touch. Like I said, there's so many like things in this film. When they do it well, they do it so well. Callbacks is something that they do extremely well in this film, and that was probably my favorite. Is I realized I was like, she grabs the gnome and shoves the loogie covered hand straight into Kano's face, like straight through his eye to kill him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is so freaking sick, man. That was so cool.
Yeah.
Love that. I love that she immediately comes out and she goes, he's like, oh, she goes, yeah, I already like unlocked it. Like I'm a badass.
Yeah.
What did you expect?
Exactly. Yeah. Like
I was taking all these people when I didn't have a mark of the chosen. I chose myself.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like also a funny thing. Like Liu Kang points it out earlier in the film that he chose himself as well. So it's like you don't have to be chosen; you can choose to be chosen.
Yeah.
And I like that he sets it up talking to Cole about that, and it's kind of like the discrepancy between him and Cole.
Yeah.
And like, well, Cole's like, why am I the only person that was born with it? And that introduces us to an exposition on that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that was
so
like
I was already a badass. I got it. Jax being like, my motivation is to save my best friend, awakens his, which also shout out that they gave Jax actual real robot arms, and not bullshit like coveralls.
Yeah, that was a fun little thing, because like as soon as they were introduced and like in the context of the Arcana, I was like, oh, like when his Arcana unlocks, he's going to actually get the real Jax arms. I thought that was like a cool little setup, and also gave us the fun visuals of him like weakly punching a punching bag with like the freaking
hands.
like automaton, like Gen 1. Gen like 0.1 Tony Stark arms or whatever.
So good. So good.
And I love the
so good.
Yeah, I love the like the mention earlier of like Kano getting his ability from somebody like right before Sonya showed up or something. Like Sonya was tracking that person and Kano killed him right before. And so that's like how he like, so I love the lineage of like that mark, even is that like Sonya was trying to find that person, Kano got to him first, and then Sonya ends up getting that mark from Kano.
Herself, yeah.
Which also ties into the weird thing of like Raiden at the end saying like I'll give you a new list of champions. I'm like, well, wait, No, that breaks everything you've established in this. If we can just go find other champions out there, like, do they have the mark or not?
I thought he was saying the other people out there who have the mark. I'm gonna give you the list of their names.
I'll be interested to see, I guess, how
that.
that is introduced or plays out, because like it felt to me that like, oh, the group of champions they have in this is all they have, is all that's on Earthrealm, I guess. And so when they are like, okay, yep, you're gonna go to Hollywood to find Johnny Cage, I'm like, okay, but does Johnny Cage already have the mark? And then if so,
I
like,
think that was the implication.
why didn't Liu Kang, whose job it was to go find these people, go find him? Like, Liu Kang was really bad at that job.
Because Liu Kang, it's like, it's his job. It's like, cool, Liu Kang, when were you going to go do the job? Oh, like when the tournament was announced. Oh, cool, Liu Kang, this takes place. The film's events take place way before the tournament's supposed to happen.
I mean, I don't know if it's way before. I don't know if like we get enough of establishment of timeline apart from Shang Tsung is cheating the system and basically saying like, let's not even have this 10th tournament. We're going to destroy their champions before we can have it, so we can just railroad through that tournament. But it was still like, even if that is the logic, even if it is like, hey, the tournament is years away or something like that, still go find these people and recruit them and start training them now. So you're not training them to like fight these mortal enemies, on a day's notice or something like that.
By the time Liu Kang wakes up and he goes through all of his kata and finishes his kata,
he just does. There's just not enough time in the day.
There's not enough time in the day. Like he's supposed to leave and go where? How? Like Kano mentions, he goes, yeah, I've been up through there in that area before running guns. Cool. Liu Kang's probably Liu Kang doesn't have enough time in his day to get through his katas as well as go and make that travel.
Raiden can send him through his teleportation electricity, his lightning bolts. Like that's.
But that only works. That only works from 9 to 5.
I don't know. That's not established at all. Especially because we see Cole come back very late in the evening one time. So like.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's just like. If we really want to dive in and pick apart, we absolutely can pick apart this movie so much more than we already have.
So easily. It's so poorly edited that you definitely could just like tear it apart at seams.
But like it's still fun, and
it's so good. It's fun.
So I think we can dive into one of the things we talked about it a little bit in the spoiler territory, like the fatalities that are used in here.
Oh god, they're so
obviously
good.
So fun.
They're so good.
The best of the best, I would say, is the Kung Lao one, of course, right?
100%.
Like as soon as he threw that in there, I was like, "Oh, are we actually getting?" And then, yep, like winged lady goes like flying right through. I was like, like it's definitely one of those things. Like when IGN posts like new fatality videos for every new game or whatever, I'm like, it is the most car crash type of video for me on the internet. I'm like, I'm tempted to watch and I kind of want to watch, but also like I don't like gore. I don't like excessive gore. I'm not really overly interested in seeing it. So when like we're seeing that come up here on screen, I was like, oh, I watched, but I was like, oh man, I don't like how that bad are they gonna? Oh, they're gonna go that bad with it. Okay, yep. She is just split in half, and and then he does deliver the
see her
the
brain.
Excellent.
It's great.
Yeah, he delivers the excellent
Also,
flawless victory line.
Yeah, flawless victory. Kung Lao with all those awesome lines of, here, you will test your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a shame that he then gets his soul sucked away by Shang Tsung.
Which is in canon.
Yeah, you say it's in canon. I feel like anything could have been in canon or out of canon in this movie.
That's fair. There's 2 timelines now, and so anything can be canon.
Yeah.
Except Cole Young. Don't make Cole Young canon.
Oh, I definitely think Cole Young is going to be set up as like a fighter in a future game. Like that seems almost like a given really at this point. and we'll be like, okay, well, what is his power? He just has a couple of weapons. But yeah, I like that fatality was fun. I enjoyed the Jax. The whole Jax fight with Raiko at the end of like, okay, like you can teleport us anywhere, and so they get teleported to like a stage right out of the game kind of thing.
So
cool. And Jax gets to use his like bionic, and I love his like line of like, yeah, these will fucking do, or whatever he says after his little fatality there. You get the Kung Lao Fire Dragon or King Liu Kang Fire
Liu
Dragon
Kang's Fire Dragon
was a cool one.
fatality, yep.
I thought looked really good, especially like
It looked so good
for the effects from the like the rest of the game kind of thing. I mean,
it looked so good.
Yeah.
And I like how it's like he goes, "What is this?" And you realize, oh, it's tar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And or like it's some flammable. Like you can tell that it is supposed to be flammable.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Cabal's fighting style throughout this entire thing was awesome. Melina's was awesome. We got to see a full Melina face.
Yeah.
Which was like when it finally happened, I popped the fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, and it looked good too. Like, and let's also talk about the four-armed giant in the room, Goro. Goro looked amazing.
Yeah, he looked good.
Like for a budget of only like $95 million, with the effects that they had, like I will shit on all the time the Raiden eyes. They just look super like C-tier budget looking After Effects looking shit. But aside from that, everything else effects wise is phenomenal. The armor when it first shows up is super cool. As far as like how it's like put on, it should have just stayed wrist guards and been this thing, but we get what we get. And we get what we get and we don't make a fit.
I guess there is that question of like, does he just always have the like those wrappings on him now? Is that just part of his skin now?
He didn't have him in the last scene.
Did he not?
At least it didn't look like it did. No,
I mean, it was almost like he could have just put clothes on over it, I guess, is kind of the thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Kung Lao doesn't always need to have his hat around.
Yeah.
He takes off his hat at one point. So, like, it's fine. I'm sure it's fine. Let me think what else. So, Goro was awesome. The Goro fight in the garage, and I actually liked it. Nick Scarpino pointed out on their in review of this film. But he has the boxer's guard. When Goro is pummeling him with punches,
mm-hmm.
he has the boxer's guard of like just knowing. Like I'm like I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back at it, his defensive maneuvers against Goro are like basic MMA boxing style, like modern martial arts defensive stuff, and that was super cool. Liu Kang has the bicycle kick, the best, like, and that's where we get that. Like we get that full on like do of the Mortal Kombat song, and then it cuts off afterwards, and you're like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because they had to bring it back for the Scorpion Sub-Zero. Like that's when
a little bit of the taste.
That's when it hit full force was for the final showdown between Sub-Zero and Scorpion, which is like obviously the most iconic head to head of the series.
100%. I will say I loved that when. You mentioned earlier when he, like, his armor... no, you didn't mention it. But, so, first off, their armor, the fact that they, like, Scorpion's armor is very much Japanese-themed, and Sub-Zero's is very much Chinese-themed, as far as, like, older armor sets. Like, perfect. So cool. To not just distinguish them from their, like, just from the colors, but to once again play into Lin Kuei versus Shirai Ryu, like this different style of armor to go along with that, different weapon sets. Even
that nature of like the dichotomy there between Sub-Zero and Scorpion. Like prior to this film, I never put it in the context of Scorpion is Japanese based and the Lin Kuei are Chinese based. Like I never. And part of that is because I don't dive deep into the lore, I'm sure, but like I just never even like thought of that. It was just like they have just been the multicolored ninjas for me, like they have been ever since I was 10 years old or whatever when the first game came out. So I guess probably a little older than that or a little younger than that, but like that's like this was the first movie that like or the first anything that really made me like examine that and think about that, and I was like, oh, that's really like cool that there is like a like it, especially again for like my white ass. I appreciate that it was, hey, this isn't just like blanket Asian. It is like there are differences in these cultures and these things. I was like, that's great, and that was like a great case of like this is a cool element of representation matters kind of thing,
Yes.
that I just
I
had
agree.
never even registered. So I appreciate that, like, the movie opened my eyes to that and that element of kind of the lore of these characters.
The like it just everything from they even threw in the classic "Get Over Here."
Mm-hmm.
Like
You knew it was coming.
They had to.
As soon as the thing got pierced through him, or I was like, yeah, that was probably where I popped the hardest. And I knew it was coming. I knew it was inevitable. I'm pretty sure I probably saw it from the trailers and stuff like that. But like seeing it in the context of the movie, it was a great payoff, especially because like that is the first time we're seeing Scorpion really as Scorpion. Like we've seen him in those like flashes that Cole has, and we've seen him like, you know, rebuilding his spear kind of in the depths of hell or the nether realm or whatever, but like and obviously we saw him at the beginning of the film, but this is the first time we see Scorpion as Scorpion, and so him getting that like epic introduction at almost the end of the movie, it was like, yes, this is like a payoff to the hour and a half of everything else that has come before it in a great way.
Hey, you let us have Cole Young, so we're gonna let you have Scorpion for like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
it's like, cool, thanks. No, I actually liked it also that the fire that Scorpion uses ends up being the thing that like wakes up Cole's family.
mm-hmm.
Like like his last words to him, which is funny because like I don't think Cole speaks Japanese.
Yeah, I definitely had one of those thoughts too. Like I don't think he gets you. I don't think he understands what you're saying, man.
Yeah, no, because he says stuff like, you know, take care of our family line,
Mm-hmm.
or, like take care of our bloodline, and then goes back to hell. I just want like you could tell like the reason I picked up on like I don't think he knows Japanese is because the way that
Louis Tan,
Cole Young's Louis Tan was acting, which was
kind of like I don't really register what you're talking about. Yeah,
I get the general thing. Like you're on my side. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have the dagger thing. So clearly, like we're on the same side. But like, cool. Who was that? Like that would have been a really great thing of if like his wife or daughter was like who was that? And Cole going, oh, no idea. But this sort of stuff just happens all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. These are my new friends. They like look at all their magic abilities. Oh yeah, that guy. I think that guy was like my great grandfather. But really, I would only know that through a couple visions I've had and this mural I saw in this weird ancient temple.
But he wasn't even in that armor or anything. Like he has a mask on like 95% of that fight too. Yeah. So it's like, Cole, who was that? Oh, I have no idea.
No clue. Yeah. That would be the if Kano was getting to respond. That would be like no idea who that was. But yeah, it was still a ton of fun. Yeah. And I love especially because we so rarely get to see it of Scorpion being poised as like the good guy. Like just because of the iconography, it has always been like Scorpion is the bad guy and Sub-Zero is the good guy. And I love that this was a switch of that. And I know I had been, I think, prepped for that from the Mortal Kombat 11 story that has...
Well, Scorpion's not a bad guy.
I mean, he's not, but he's always like a demon from hell, which is pretty synonymous with bad. So...
well... I don't know, because like I've never felt that way about Scorpions, especially once they explain in the games that like what Scorpion and Sub-Zero's like background is.
Still, again, just saying, demon from hell in
he's not a demon.
To 99% of the world gonna be synonymous with bad. So
he's not a demon. Just because he can rip off his face and show off his skull head and breathe fire at somebody doesn't mean he's a demon. He's Revenant. He's a ghost from hell.
Okay. I mean, I feel like this is a tomato kind of thing here, but sure.
Probably.
Go ahead and be your contrarian self there, Cameron. That's fine. Knock yourself out.
I don't feel like I'm being the contrarian here. I feel like you're being the contrarian.
No. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else want to give any shout outs to.
Yeah.
Again, like the music was a letdown there in that final sequence. Even when we get like the tease of the original theme, like just the music throughout the rest of it was just like so forgettable, disappointing. I did love
shout out to when Jax gets his arms frozen.
Yeah, that was a cool sequence.
I actually had like a minor flip out because I didn't notice the bone at first. Like the bone sticking out of his arm.
It was like that was one of those like I wish the trailer hadn't given that away, because it was like as soon as
I haven't
Jax
seen
goes
any
into that
trailers for
area,
this.
I was like I know exactly how this fight's going to end, and it's just a matter of like, okay, how does Jax show up later on with his bionic arms?
The only trailer I'd seen is the one of Sub-Zero making the sword out of ice as like the teaser thing for the trailer, but I've never actually seen a trailer for this film.
Okay,
So
yeah,
I wanted to go in
I'd seen a
totally
couple.
blind. So like I didn't know when I started watching. I had heard a rumor that like early pre-production they were talking about an original character. I didn't know that they had chosen an original character.
Oh yeah,
because I didn't watch any of the trailers. So I'm like, oh okay, so that rumor was true.
Yeah,
I came into it like super blind, and I have to say I think I was able to enjoy the film a lot because of that. I had zero expectations.
Yeah.
Other than I just want to see cool fights.
Even with like the things that I kind of like knew were coming, because like a lot of the trailers also like showed a lot of the Sub-Zero Scorpion fight at the end. So like seeing the Sub-Zero, like the knife, the blood knife bit that Sub-Zero has in that final fight, like had been given away. Still a cool moment in context, but like it was like, oh, it would have been a cooler surprise if we hadn't seen that kind of coming. There were just a couple other moments like that. Like again, the get over here, I'm pretty sure I'd seen in a trailer in that same vein. Or you could piece together that was what was happening. And it was just a matter of like hearing the line. But yeah, it's still a ton of fun, and I really, again, like I can't express enough how much I just enjoyed anytime Kano was on screen. Like, easily made the movie just a fun little joyous, like he made it a popcorn movie. He captured all of like the best of the '95 like cheesiness spirit of the film. And even if like a couple of his lines didn't hit or whatever, it was still like a 90% batting average for him or whatever for me.
He carried this film in parts that would have been way too slow and way too boring otherwise.
Yeah. The fact that he doesn't come in till 40 minutes in, and the first 40 minutes are like, well, we have like the first 10 minutes that are the Hanzo and B1 stuff. And then we have like 30 minutes of Cole. It's like, okay, yeah, but then as soon as like he comes on, it just like from then on, it's like, okay, we're off to the races, and this is just a fun time. The whole rest. Oh,
also shout out to his getting his fatality off on Reptile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
totally forgot to mention that. Yeah, the Reptile fight is.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, the Reptile fight I think is a standout as to like what actually makes this film so great is that. They bring in these villains, especially because it was like 3-on-1 against Reptile, and Reptile was just like starting off just being super sneaky and beating them up, and then finally Cole, like Kano, gets the flare and like shoves it in him.
Yeah.
Or was it Cole who did it? No, it was Kano,
Cole tells Kano to use the flare, and Kano
use the flare.
Takes his knife and stabs it in him.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah,
great. So good. Oh, so when he said, and you threw a knife in my leg on purpose.
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah. Such a good line.
Yeah. Like when that happened in the middle of the fight, I was laughing my ass off of like, Kano's just annoyance at just having a knife thrown into his leg, having his own knife, like, cause I think he even says like, with my own knife.
Own knife. Yeah. With his own knife. It has the black dragon on it.
Yeah. He was just such a fun character. And like, I've been tempted, as I've been like cleaning parts of my apartment and stuff throughout the weekend, to just like throw the movie on and just like just jump ahead to the Kano part and just like let Kano just delight me with his one-liners throughout the rest of the film, because he is just so much fun every time he's on. Made me sad that inevitably that Sonya had to kill him off. But again, like hopefully Johnny Cage can come in and kind of just capture that same energy in the next movie.
If they cast The Miz, it'll happen.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see like how that fan casting campaign goes, or if they go with somebody else, somebody more established or whatever. But we shall see. Any final thoughts you want to throw out there for Mortal Kombat, Cam?
Yeah, I really hope we get a sequel. As much as I've been down on this film, it has enough and it's done enough world building that I think a sequel could really thrive. and be better than the first one. So
Especially
give
if,
us a sequel, please.
because like there are hints and ideas that like even Annihilation had that could be like well executed. So like even if we got like, you know, a new Sub-Zero coming up and then like gets introduced and immediately everybody is on guard and he's like, no, I'm a good guy. Like that was my brother. He was corrupted by Shang Tsung or whatever. Like I wanna help fight, you know, for Earthrealm or something. Like we could see cool ideas like that come up in a sequel. So yeah, I look forward to seeing where we see some of those elements. Also, just a couple other little Easter eggy things I wanted to give a shout out to. I already mentioned Nightwolf earlier, but there was an allusion to Kotal Khan via like an Aztec warrior image. Some of the other like murals seem to be teasing Sindel. And then like the artifacts that we had, obviously Kano tries to steal Chinook's kind of amulet. So it'll be interesting to see if we get that character in the future. And then obviously Katana's fans are in there as well in the temple. So just kind of, yeah, looking forward to seeing how the future of this series plays out. I hope, I'll be especially curious because this is a movie like more than anything else. And especially now that I've got like both shots in and I'm like a week away from like full, you know, vaccination taking effect. Like this would have been a movie I would have loved to see in a theater full of like other Mortal Kombat fans that would have like popped at so many of these moments and had so much fun with this. And like we're recording this obviously before like box office results are coming out, but like presumably this is going to be the number one movie at the box office this weekend because it is the newness and it'll probably dethrone Godzilla versus Kong. So it'll be interesting to see if like it just gets good enough like fan reaction to the series to warrant a full-fledged sequel in the future that will not have the benefit of like, hey, everybody who has HBO Max can just watch it at home kind of thing. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where Mortal Kombat goes from here and how long it takes for Cole Young to make an appearance in Mortal Kombat 12. Will he be one of the baseline characters or will he be one of the DLC? It's inevitable that he's going to be somewhere in that game, but just a matter of where and when.
I don't want to see those stupid tonfas ever again in my whole life.
Well, too bad. Because especially if like I do appreciate, and I'm pretty sure like the Kind of Funny guys mentioned this of like the idea of like if Cole gets the Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat Annihilation treatment and that like he go like imagine the next Mortal Kombat opens and he finds Cage, recruits Cage, and then is just immediately killed by somebody, and Cage takes over as like our point of view character for the second film. Like,
well, that's basically the plot of G.I. Joe Retribution, the second G.I. Joe film.
There you go, yeah.
Like the main character cast gets literally like annihilated in the first 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's great.
So we will see what the future holds in store for Mortal Kombat. But overall, this was a lot of fun, and just especially like again, it would have been super fun seeing it with a crowd of people. But in the interest of safety and not doing that, it's been fun chatting about it with you, Cam. I'm glad we both sat down and watched it this weekend, independently of one another. So that is going to do it for this episode of That Nerdy Site Show. Thank you for joining me. Let's go around the metaphorical table with any plugs we have. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give a shout out to, give some love to there, Cam?
There is part 3 of my Emily's Away playthrough will be getting posted up this Thursday. This is a great one. I'm very excited. It's also the one where I think I stopped using the overlay for my stream. Like I figured that out. That I had that on, and so I think I turned that off this time. So the weird placement of That Nerdy Site logo will be in a better place, as well as some other stuff. I will say that I don't think this one has any standout moments like the first two. Whether it's the first one with my conspiracy meme or the second episode with my dance along. And like my self-insert song.
That music started coming in as I was watching it, while I was waiting for it to upload and stuff. And I was like, "What?" Like, I didn't think Cam was using any music in this, and also like I don't remember this being a song in the game anywhere. And so I'm like, what? Like, and also he wasn't like doing anything on the game that would have like triggered it. So what the hell is going on here? And it just kind of like sits there for like a good like 20 seconds or whatever until it builds to the moment of like you dancing to it or whatever. And I was just like, oh, it's just Cam being a dumbass. Okay, cool, I guess.
It is just me being a dumbass. Oh, I love it. It's such a good moment.
I love the idea that you're just like editing these videos and just being like, what can I do that's just going to drive Trevor up the wall this time?
It wasn't even that. I actually had this planned when I recorded the episode because I was like, because there's a moment where I pause, and it's when the epiphany hits me. I'm like, oh, I should do this.
Okay.
And it's like, should I really do this? And it's like, I should definitely do this. And then I do it.
I know I've seen you use that meme or that music before in something before, and it always gets me because I'm like, the audio quality of it is just so terrible.
It's so bad. It's so terrible.
Why is this a thing? And so yeah, as it was coming in, I was like, what the hell? Like, what is that I'm hearing in there? Did something on my computer start auto playing? If so, like, what the hell? Why is? And so when your little bit paid off, I was just like, okay, whatever, Cam. Do your thing. Knock yourself out.
I don't think there's anything like that in this later one. I'll find out when I go through it again. But
chapter
it's
3.
Actually...
So chapter 3 would be after the Halloween party. So this is the Matt and Kelly breakup chapter, I'm guessing, right?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, it is great because like my turnaround on, if you follow, I was like coming real hard on Matt. I'm like, Matt, I'm your friend, but you're messing up, dude, in your relationship. And this is a total turnaround for me with him, and also like how we go forward with that. And it's a really good one.
I very much am appreciating watching you play through these now after we have talked about the game and after obviously you know the full context of everything, because I'm watching you make these things and say these things and like basically like just completely like be ready to throw Matt away and disregard him, and I'm like, oh, I know that's gonna like come back around or something like that.
Yeah,
and you just kind of be like, oh, you're completely misreading the signs or the situation here, Cam.
I am. I definitely did. And it comes back to bite me huge in the ass on this one. And I have to say, like, this is probably like one of the most heartfelt episodes. But at the same time, like, it's just great. It's just, the game's great. I'm really enjoying the Let's Plays of them. I'm actually really enjoying editing them too. I like being able to to figure out with DaVinci, because I'm way too broke to be using Adobe Premiere. Actually, I don't think that's true. I think I technically have a subscription to it because if I try to cancel it, they'll charge me like $500. I've just done like a decline payment thing with it instead. So like they keep trying to charge my account, but my account doesn't have anything on there that they can charge. So I get a loophole. Like I can't use the product, but at the same time I don't have to pay $500 to cancel it. So
yay!
Like screw you, Adobe. But yeah, so I've been really having a lot of fun, like exploring DaVinci and editing the way that I have been, and it's just it's a bit more obtuse than Premiere, but I think that overall, like I'm enjoying my time editing a lot better.
Cool.
So
yeah, part 3 will go live this week then. I look forward to getting that from you and seeing it and uploading it. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey, and I will do a similar shout out. Basically the last couple weeks effectively at the site have been like on Tuesdays it's me and Logan playing through It Takes Two, and then on Thursdays it's been Cam's Emily is Away playthrough, and that's going to continue this week as well. Logan and I actually yesterday as of recording just finished all of our It Takes Two stuff, but like I think those were parts like 7 and 8. Part 6 is what I believe goes live this week. So we're still a couple chapters away from like the end of that game, but like game is real good. Story is crap, but like the gameplay is just so fun and such a joy that we've had a great time playing through it. And now that I've seen kind of like the full like picture of the game, it's fun. It was just a great fun time sitting down with Logan for that series. So check that out as it continues to wrap up. Or you can check out kind of all of our Emily is Away play content, our It Takes Two content. I'm pretty sure I have playlists for basically all of those set up on the channel, so you can check out all that over at our YouTube, youtube.com/thatnerdysite. Check out all that stuff, and it'll be interesting to see, because I feel like I don't know what we're gonna put out there once It Takes Two wraps up, and once Emily is away, your stuff of Emily is away wraps up.
Yeah.
I feel like we're getting into what, like, Mass Effect territory is coming up. Maybe that'll be a let's play thing with the Legendary Edition. I still need to go back and finish like my retro NES Classic series. I think I still got like 5 or 6 episodes of that to do. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where our Let's Plays kind of are moving forward. And then as well, like, if Cam continues doing Let's Plays or Logan hops in and does some Let's Plays, we'll see where all that plays out. But check out all that stuff over on our YouTube, youtube.com/thatnerdysite. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site. Check out thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, ring the notification bell on YouTube, and maybe even consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/thatnerdysite, where every patron gets early access to a monthly bonus episode of this very show. I believe I'm supposed to be sitting down with Logan here in the next couple days to record next month's early access. I'm pretty sure my plan is to basically ask him what makes a good Bond movie, because he is, of course, our number one Bond fan, and I just want to kind of pick his brain on like what really are the standout elements of the good Bond movies versus all of the bad ones that are out there. But as always, thank you for listening. Stay nerdy and be good to each other.